Hi everyone, Canoopsy here. The OnePlus 9 Pro is a big phone for OnePlus. They've finally closed all the gaps and made the flagship phone we've always wanted. It has a beautiful design, gorgeous display, all those little features that are missing on past phones like official water resistance, wireless charging. It has top-of-the-line performance, a huge brand camera collab, massive battery, and so much more. The 9 Pro finally assumes the form of a flagship phone. But that's all stuff we see on the surface. After using this phone for the last few days, there are plenty of good things to report, but also a few things I'm a little bit iffy on. So first up, one of the good things with this phone, if not one of my favorite things here, is the design. I think it's really a beautiful phone. Definitely has some nice personality versus the previous 8T. It's a beautiful device. There's excellent feeling clicky buttons, a slider switch which I think all phones should honestly have, that lets you cycle between ring, vibrate, and silent. It's awesome. And speaking of vibration, the motor inside this phone is pretty incredible. OnePlus definitely knows what they're doing in this area for sure. It could be a bit stronger when vibrating in your pocket, but when adjusting sliders and other areas where there's haptics, it feels very clean and sharp. Up front, there's an always-on display with some of my favorite clock and display customization options, and there are quite a few, and powering on that display, you're greeted with an in-display fingerprint scanner. The scanner itself is placed a bit lower on the display than most other phones, but for my testing, I was able to get used to it pretty quickly. It's fast, it's accurate, it's pretty good. And the screen itself is gorgeous. The best word to explain the display here is liquid. The 6.7-inch panel bleeds over the edges ever so slightly, but accidental touches are non-existent. The 120Hz is incredibly fluid and smooth, and daily tasks like navigating the UI, swiping around, it's really a treat. And the display gets bright, colors are gorgeous, and it's a 2K resolution phone with full 120Hz refresh rate. So it's bright, it's fast, it's beautiful. What more could you ask for? It's a gorgeous display. And speaking of speed, there really isn't that much to say about performance, and that's honestly a good thing. Because you know OnePlus, speed and fluidity is their thing. And with that 120Hz refresh rate combined with the top-of-the-line Snapdragon 888 processor, 8 or 12 gigs of RAM, I have 12 gigs, day-to-day performance and even more intensive stuff is a dream. Whether you're multitasking, just navigating the user interface, swiping around, switching between apps and gaming, not a single stutter, drop in frames, or much of a delay with anything. And with gaming, there are plenty of optimizations here to make the experience even better, as well as a dedicated game mode from OnePlus. Simply put, OnePlus's marketing with fast and smooth definitely is not a lie. This phone is not messing around. It is one of the smoothest phone experiences I've used all year so far. And knowing OnePlus's track record, this phone should feel fast for many, many years. It's got the specifications, it's got the optimizations, it's got clean and beautiful software. This phone's gonna be quick. And the software here is pretty incredible. OnePlus's Oxygen OS continues to be one of my favorite Android skins, but it is of course way beyond just being a visual update to Android. There's actually so many customization options with this phone, from removing app labels to home screen tweaks, icon tweaks, accent colors, top-notch gesture controls, display enhancements. Oxygen OS is 10 out of 10. It's got features on features on features and many things you can actually do to customize your phone without getting third-party apps or launchers or any stuff like that. It's all built in, all while feeling beautiful and minimal. What's really not so minimal though is the amount of hype that OnePlus has thrown into the camera situation on this device, and there's a little bit to get into. OnePlus has really been hyping up their Hasselblad collaboration for what feels like months now, and basically Hasselblad is a brand that makes really expensive, beautiful high-performance cameras that are highly regarded in the photography world. They didn't really contribute to the actual camera hardware here, but mostly just a software tie-in, image tuning, and also a brand image bump for OnePlus, so they can really push that the cameras are a big deal with this phone. So the 16 megapixel selfie camera here in bright conditions, it does take some okay selfies. The phone also shoots 1080p video up to 60 frames per second. You're hearing the microphone quality from this phone right now. Also, it's pretty smooth with electronic image stabilization, so you can walk around, you can vlog, you're going to be stable and in the shot. But the rear camera setup is definitely a lot more exciting. It's a 48 megapixel main camera, 50 megapixel ultra-wide camera, 8 megapixel 3.3 times optical zoom camera, and a 2 megapixel depth sensing black and white camera. The best way to explain the cameras here is good, but still a bit inconsistent. I gotta say, the newest software update definitely did wonders for the camera experience, but it's still not perfect. Don't get me wrong though, the phone does take some excellent shots and OnePlus certainly has its own sort of visual style with photos on this device. But I find the phone either goes super saturation on shots or a little bit too dull in some situations. There really isn't too much of a middle ground, it's kind of one or the other. I find the phone does over sharpen things a little bit much as well, especially outdoors, and if you pinch to zoom in, things look a bit sharper than they really need to be at times. And in brighter situations, the phone does struggle a little bit with lens flares too. Depth of field is natural and beautiful here with the main sensor, and the ultra-wide camera is excellent even in lower light situations, which is fantastic. The telephoto camera is kind of good to have, I guess, and sometimes takes excellent shots from a distance, but the colors from this camera and the general look of photos is not really as good as the main camera, if I'm being honest. And actually taking photos, the shutter speed is quick, but sometimes feels a little bit slow at the same time, evidenced by shots that you were holding perfectly still for, turning out kinda blurred. Night photos, once again, are kind of inconsistent. Sometimes they turn out great, with lots of detail, natural look, they're bright, but other times, I'd say about 60% of the time, they turn out a little bit blurry, even with nightscape on. You stand still for a few seconds with this mode on, the phone takes the shot, and the end result is usually pretty good, but that blur every once in a while is kind of annoying, especially if you're waiting for your shot to process. But if you want more control over the photos yourself, there's actually a killer manual mode thanks to most likely Hasselblad, with focus peaking, raw shooting, ISO adjustment, all that fun stuff. It's great. Video recording in 4K up to 8K is also pretty good. It has a similar color profile to photos at times, which trends between saturated and flat, leaning a bit more flat with video. Videos are sharp, stabilization is smooth and solid, but I find it does like to bump up shadows and highlights a little bit with every shot, kind of washing out some of the details. But videos at night though are quite nice. So overall, the cameras in this phone are good, and they certainly have gotten a lot better than when this phone initially launched. OnePlus has been putting in work, making the camera experience better. Now, using this phone on the daily, battery life is solid. I wouldn't say it's the best battery life king of the year so far, but that being said, it does last a full day for me, and I'm a pretty heavy user. But if you're trying to go past that, I would definitely bring a charger with you. I use my phone quite a bit, especially at home watching videos, out and about taking photos, replying to emails, using social apps, all that fun stuff. I really push my phone. But this phone has a superpower, and that's fast charging. 65-watt wired charging with OnePlus's charger and cable, and 50-watt wireless charging with OnePlus's new wireless charger, which is actually pretty good, and definitely a visual and functional improvement from the last one they shipped. So here's an example of charging in action. I was working on a project till late at night, forgot to plug in my phone before I went to sleep, and I woke up in the morning, my phone was literally at 1%. Now, I also had a pretty big shoot that day as well, and typically in this situation, I'd be stressing out. I'd be all worried I wouldn't have battery for the whole day, but with this phone, I just plugged it in within 30 minutes. Before I even finished my coffee, before I was ready to leave, my phone was at 100% battery. 1% to 100% in under 30 minutes. Crazy. So while the battery life is solid, not groundbreakingly long-lasting, being able to charge your phone so quick with no stress, that's a huge win for the 9 Pro. Oh, also it has reverse wireless charging, so that's pretty cool. Okay, so this phone does 90% of the things we expect from a flagship expensive phone, and does them right. And yeah, this phone definitely is an expensive device now. No longer is it a flagship phone at a budget price, it's a flagship phone at a flagship price. It's got that gorgeous design and smooth, beautiful display, fast performance, one of the best software experiences around, solid battery life, and fast charging that no one can top, but with the big compromise being the inconsistent camera. But if you don't mind the camera experience on this phone, you've done your research, you don't mind how photos look, and you're willing to take a bet that OnePlus will fix the camera over time on this device, and I'm sure they will, then you're gonna absolutely love the OnePlus 9 Pro. I'm gonna hang on to this phone, wait for those updates to roll in, test out the camera experience even more, and maybe I'll make a long-term review in the near future. But for now, I want to hear your thoughts on the 9 Pro in the comments down below. Like the video if you liked it, subscribe, and thank you for watching.